What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Today, we are talking UFC 302 with my girl, Minty Bets of UFC Fight Pass. Hashtag on the line. Minty, sister, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I mean, man, I love pay-per-view events because they're usually really, really stacked cards. So I'm excited to talk bets with you.
I am too. So, Minty, you and I have known each other for a few years, and obviously you've been one of like the OG betting girls in the space. But how did you get into UFC and MMA? Is it just living in Vegas and being a part of the action, or how did this become like your specialty?
Actually, COVID, when
Yeah.
COVID hit, we all kind of had to shift to either horse racing or UFC. And I was like, we got to do UFC.
Not betting on the ponies.
So yeah, UFC really COVID really helped me get into UFC, and then the following year I had the honor of interviewing Dana White, and then a year later I worked for him. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I've been a casual fan for a while before that, but never really like had to tune in for it. But now it's like my life and my livelihood. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And for those who are diehard MMA fans and UFC fans,
they're here.
They're here. The fan base is not welcoming to new people, and if you were not born fighting, then you're just like not in. But come on, UFC, like come on, you got to welcome some new fans. So
yes,
we love UFC, and there's just so many great prospects. There's so many great fighters, and there's so many great fights on this card too.
Okay, well, that's exciting. And you've been killing it on Fight Pass. I'm super proud of you. And I've been watching along on the sideline. So let's get into it. What are you looking forward to the most from this UFC 302?
Well, this entire card is actually really good, although I do wish there were a few more fights, as it does seem like it'll run a
Pretty
bit
light.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the co-main event, it's going to be fun between Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa. Sean Strickland is a very controversial guy outside the octagon, and people love to hate him. As for Paulo Costa, it's the opposite. Everyone loves the guy. So that's going to be a really fun fight. And of course, the main event is going to be a banger between Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev. Dustin fights never disappoint. And Islam Makhachev is as dominant gets. So this is going to be a really, really good one.
So you rattled off a few names there. Who do you think on this card has the most to prove?
Okay, so I could list a few. I'm going to start with the very first fight on the prelims. Andre Lima. He didn't have his UFC debut go as planned, but it in fact turned out to be better because a few months ago when he made his debut against Igor Severino bit Andre Lima early in the heat of the moment. So Andre got paid handsomely after that one. However, we didn't really get to see enough from him. His short notice opponent, Mitch Raposo, was on The Ultimate Fighter, and he was set to make his Contender Series debut this summer, but he's getting called up. So both of these prospects are beasts, and they have a ton to prove. I could say the same about the main event because Dustin Poirier, he's getting up there in age, and he has a very, very lengthy resume.
Yeah.
Can he defeat someone of Islam's caliber and skill set? And can Islam Makhachev extend his win streak to 14 in a row? There's a lot on the line here.
A lot on the line. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about that one right now. You got Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier, plus 460. He's the dog here. This will be Makhachev's third defense of his lightweight belt. He took the belt from Charles Oliveira, who beat Dustin Poirier in 2021, as I believe you actually just said. So Makhachev's only lost was a first-round knockout. Poirier has won a majority of his fights by knockout. How are you betting this one?
So Islam is 14-1 with his only defeat, like you said, coming in 2015. 9 wins by finish, 5 by decisions. We've seen Islam open as a near $5 favorite, and that number has shot up to minus 675 or so. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as a $7 favorite by fight night. But what will most likely happen is that we'll see more public bettors back the Dustin side, and I don't blame him because Poirier, he's 6-2 as a UFC dog, which means he's been incredibly profitable at plus money. I bet against him in his last appearance against Benoit Saint-Denis, and that was my only loss on the card. So I'm really, but Islam has a lot of ways to win this fight here. Islam by KO, TKO is plus 275. Islam by sub is minus 120. For me, Islam does win this one inside the distance. But if you're going to bet on that, that's minus 300. So I am actually going to sprinkle a little bit on Dustin Poirier at plus
Oh,
whatever, 460, 475,
you're betting
490.
against him again?
No, I'm betting on Dustin
Oh,
now.
okay, 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 okay.
Yes, yes. But, that price and his track record as an underdog is just too good to pass up. So
Yeah.
I really like Dustin to win this one.
Okay.
But my better bet for this one is going to be this fight to end in under 2.5 rounds at minus 180.
Oh,
Because as
quick.
tough as Dustin is, he either finishes or gets finished. And he hasn't had a
Right.
fight go to the card since 2020. So I like this one to finish early.
All right, so that one's not going to go the distance. We're taking Dustin Poirier plus 490. Sprinkle a little bit on the dog, and then under 2.5 rounds at minus
Mm.
180. Thank you to our friends over at Caesar Sportsbook. Okay, so let's move on, Minty, to the middleweight fight. Some easier names here to pronounce. Sean Strickland minus 230. He's the favorite versus Paolo Costa plus 190. Strickland recently held the middleweight title against Adesanya, but he lost his last fight to Driscus Duplessis.
Dricus
French.
Duplessis. We'll call him DDP.
Duplessis.
That's
All
fine.
right. Well, close enough. We got there. All right. So Costa was undefeated until losing to Adesanya in 2020, but he has lost 3 of his last 4 fights. What are you looking for in this one? Duplessis.
Well,
See, I just want to say it again.
yeah, yeah. Sean is a wild card, and I can never really read him, but he's got good pressure. He's got great defense. As for Paulo Costa, he's dangerous. But like you alluded to earlier, he's 1-3 his last 4. But again, those were to high opposition.
Yeah.
Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, and Marvin Vittori. Other than fighting in February, he hasn't really been that active. Sean is the rightful favorite here, and I believe he has proven himself to be this big of a favorite, but I can't bet that number.
Yeah.
This is actually the largest favorite he's been since 2017 against Court McGee. Strickland's 10-4 as the betting favorite in the UFC. How can you not bet on him? So, for a
Okay.
little, for it to be worth it for me, I like Sean
Yeah.
to win this one by decision. So I've got a pick for this one. Maybe I'll give 2. I've got Sean Strickland to win by decision at plus
Okay.
150. But
Okay.
since this is a 5-round co-main event, I want a little wiggle room in case this one does go into deep waters and ends, late finish. I'm betting that this fight will start round 4 at minus 150. So Sean by decision and
Ah.
this fight to start round 4 minus 150.
Okay. So you brought up some interesting points here, and one for maybe some novice betters on the UFC. It's interesting because the favorites are always very, very, not always, but a majority of the time, very, very heavy favorites, not a whole lot of value there. There is a million different ways that you can bet this. So I see for this one, you've got Sean Strickland by decision. That's at plus 150. Then you've got, what did you say to start the 4th round?
Yes, at minus 150.
At minus 150. So on a lot of these cards or a lot of these bets, do you kind of put some insurance in because it could end so many different ways? It could end so quickly. Like, how do you approach just betting UFC in general?
It's like one of the most difficult sports to bet
It's
on.
not like football.
Yeah, it's not like me and you are
Yeah.
football girlies, and
Yeah.
we bet on the teams, okay? And of
Mhm,
course, sometimes
mhm.
we'll dabble in props on a player prop or so.
Yeah.
But this is like all player props. You can bet on so and so to win by KO,
Right.
TKO, sub. You can bet on them to be finished in the first 60 seconds. Like there's so many different ways. You just have to be really careful about it, and you kind of have to look at these fights before you even see the betting lines. You have to watch tape. You just have to make sure the matchup favors the fighter that you're going with, and anything can happen. And this one,
Yeah.
injuries are just like your worst
Well, of
nightmare.
course.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, some guy can just snap his knee and you just lose the fight, even though he was like a minus 700 favorite. So anything can really happen. It's really hard. I try not to get specific with the props because that usually ends really badly.
Right.
So parlay it
You're either
up,
a hero
parlay all
or
the big favorites, guys.
Okay. All right. All right. I like it. I mean, just finding some value, trying to make it interesting too for yourself as you're watching this. So let's look at another middleweight fight here. We got Kevin Holland minus 290 versus Michal Oleksiejczuk at
Woo-woo.
plus 235. Holland has lost his last 2 fights, Minty, but he has won 8 by submission. Very interesting. And Michal has lost 5 fights by submission. Do you think submission's going to be the way this one ends?
I think so. This is a really interesting line because Kevin Holland, love him, by the way. He's coming off back-to-back defeats, as you mentioned. He
Yeah,
just
he's
fought in
due.
March. Yeah, and he's a minus 290 favorite after having lost his last 2 and having just fought not too long ago. I
Hmm.
don't agree with the line in particular, but he is 11-4 with 1 no contest as the betting favorite. And I do believe he can win this one by submission. That will be his path to victory here because out of 5 defeats, defeats of Michal Oleksiejczuk, 4 of them were by submission. And he's the kind of fighter to show up early. He's got tons of power. He's a really fun fighter, but Kevin Holland has the size advantage, and he's a lengthy guy who uses it to his advantage very well. He's incredibly tough, and he can weather the storm in the late rounds. I believe moving up in weight for him in this one is going to benefit him greatly. So my bet for this is going to be Kevin Holland to win by submission or decision at plus 105.
Oh, so you could do a little either or on that
Yeah.
one. I like that. Now, when you think about submission, now I guess it doesn't matter. It could happen in the first round, it could happen in the last round. You're not necessarily betting this, but how long do you think this one's going to go?
I think this well, because
Just go
I
the
bet
distance?
submission or decision, I think it could
Yeah.
honestly end in either the third round or just go by decision. So I don't think
Yeah.
this one's going to end early unless Michal Oleksiejczuk knocks out Kevin Holland somehow.
We're not even putting that out here. That's not happening.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
happening. All right, Minty, we are going to take a quick break here and we come back. More UFC 302 prelim picks from our girl Minty. Don't go anywhere. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Back here on Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook with Minty Bets here talking UFC 302. Let's now get into some prelim picks here. What would be your favorite pick of the prelim?
Okay. I alluded to this earlier. It's going to be the very, very first fight on the early prelims between Mitch Raposo and Andre Lima. I'm going Mitch Raposo at plus 215, plus 220. That line is just like fluctuating here. As I mentioned earlier, both are young prospects with a ton to prove. They've got grit. They're so clean. They're both so powerful. But I love Mitch Raposo in this one, even though it does go against my rule of betting on fighters making their UFC debut and
Mm.
fighters coming off of or on short notice. But I believe he has what it takes for the upset. He competed in the Ultimate Fighter, of course, like I said, Contender Series. He was supposed to be scheduled, so I think he's ready.
So when you say you don't bet on people coming into their first, is it just because there's not necessarily enough tape on them? Clearly they've been going, in some more amateur circles or whatever, but why don't you like to bet on people on their debuts normally?
The UFC is just the highest tier you can get. So the opposition that you'll face in the UFC is going to be the toughest. Like these are
Yeah,
the guys that made it. These are the guys that made it big. And of course, there are some UFC fighters that aren't like the best or most exciting, but they made it somehow. So
right,
so Andre Lima is going to be one of his toughest competitions yet,
right.
which is
Okay,
why I say I don't really like
fair.
making. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we hype up a lot of these young prospects when they make their debut, and usually they kind of flop because
Okay.
they're not used to the
Yeah.
fighters in the
Well, it's like
UFC.
it's like the college quarterbacks that won the Heisman Trophy winner, and then their first game in the NFL, they get absolutely drilled. So understand that. All right, looking for value here in the prelims. What are you looking at?
All right, so I want to mention first and foremost, value does not always have to be plus money. To me,
Right.
value goes to a fighter who's being overlooked and undervalued with the betting line,
Okay.
and that to me is Roman Kapilov at minus 105. Both him and Cesar Almeida are high-level kickboxers who bring a lot to the table, and they've got really similar skill sets. However, Kapilov should be more swift, and we've seen him really struggle against fighters with a strong ground game, and that is not Cesar Almeida. Roman is a finisher on the feet, and at essentially a pick 'em, I'm going with the lower price guy who's got more experience in the UFC, and he's already someone that I like to win this fight before seeing the price. So Roman Kapilov minus 105 is going to be my value pick here.
Okay, I love that. And yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't always it's your value that you're getting over the sports book, not necessarily the plus money in front of it. So obviously we got to talk about Conor McGregor here, right? Versus Michael Chandler on June 29th, UFC 303. Any early leans here on McGregor's return to the octagon? You said you don't, I mean, obviously McGregor is an absolute legend, but it's been a while. What do you think he could cook up?
To be honest, I do not know how I'm going to bet this fight yet.
Yeah,
I lean Michael Chandler, but I don't know if that's really a confident pick. It's a fight where we haven't seen either man in the octagon for 2+ years or
yeah.
so, and so much can change in that time span. There are so many unknown variables for this particular matchup. Um, but man, this is going to be this fight sold out really, really fast too.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see Conor in the ring. I am very interested to see how he performs. But for now, I'm just leaning Michael Chandler.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so the time has come now for Mox Locks Minty Bets. What is the one that you were the most confident in taken to the window for UFC?
All right, this
302. Yes.
yeah, this card's kind of tough because although I do have a lot of bets for this weekend, I'm going to be pretty conservative here. Um, I believe I'm going to go to the Sean Strickland Paulo Costa fight, and I believe this one should start out pretty slow. And with Sean's somewhat unconventional style, I like him to control the
Mhm.
pace of this one and win either in the late rounds or by decision. So my safe pick here will be this fight to start round 4 at minus 150.
Okay, I love that. So, Minty, talk to me a little bit about UFC Fight Pass. You've been doing it now for over a year, right? Almost 2 years
Oh, 2
now.
years now.
What is it? You post all these, and if by the way, if you don't follow Minty on social, make sure you do at Minty Bets. And I love that when you post the kind of day in the life of when you are going to UFC Fight Pass. So maybe just like walk us through what that's like and what a day is, because there's so many huge UFC fans that would literally die for your job. So tell us more about it.
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly grateful that I work for UFC because, again, I
Yeah.
really only got into UFC betting in 2020 when COVID happened. But because of my work from Yahoo, I was noticed, and
Yeah.
they really liked me because I don't follow just UFC. I don't breathe and live and eat
Yes.
UFC. I'm
Yes.
all sports, and you know that, and you're all sports as
Yeah.
well. But UFC Fight Pass is an app where you have to subscribe to and you get all these shows. You get all these shows, all these podcasts. That's where all the UFC shows live, kind of. And we have a show called On the Line. It's with Yanni the Greek and Nick Kalikas. And we give out our picks and we allocate like how much money we're going to put on each of our bets. We're given a
Okay.
hypothetical $1,000 bankroll every single pay-per-view fight. And yeah, and the next week we see if we're up and down. And so far I'm down a little bit, but it's
I was gonna say
okay.
who's
Hope to
winning?
make it up here.
Whose bankroll is the most full at this point in the
Yanni,
season?
he has had like
Yanni.
7 straight winning weeks. Yeah. And
Wow.
Yanni's the guy who gives out the Contender Series bets as well. So
Okay.
he's just like all about it. He's really good. I'm honored to work alongside them. But yeah, UFC Fight Pass on the line betting show. Check it out. I mean, I give out all my picks there. You guys can track my bets and make fun of me all you want, but it's an incredibly fun show. And also,
Yeah.
every pay per view event, UFC comes out with like I do these like gambling insights where I just give out my best bet for the main event. So check that out too on YouTube because on UFC Fight Pass you do have to subscribe and pay for it. But I mean, I'm
Right.
giving out all the picks right here on Mox
Yes.
Locks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. Tune into Moxie Bets for Minty, of course. Follow her on social at Minty Bets. And look, if you're a huge fight fan, you probably already subscribe to Fight Pass. If not, go ahead and do that. And then there's some more stuff on the YouTube channel as well. Minty, before I let you go, the football season is fast approaching. Who do you like far too early to win the Super Bowl
Oh,
this year?
Katie, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay.
I have not even checked. I have been so deep into the
Into
NHL playoffs
UFC. Oh,
and
NHL. Well, yeah.
UFC. Yeah,
Yeah.
and baseball. So I'm
All
gonna
right.
wait
Well,
till
okay,
like
fine.
yeah, July or so because we got training camps and we got people
It's
still
too
signing
early.
on. Yeah.
It's too early.
It is.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not betting against the Chiefs. I don't know why my 49ers are favored. We've seen time and time again that teams that lose the Super Bowl don't really come back that strong the next year. Is it's never been done, the three-peat before, but if anyone can do it, it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Oh, wait, well, let's talk NHL playoffs then real quick. The Rangers, are you worried about the Rangers even getting out of this round, let alone winning the Stanley Cup?
No, because
Good. Yes. Thank you.
yeah, no, I'm not worried at all. And you know what? I have money on both the Rangers and the Panthers to win the Stanley
Okay.
Cup, although the Rangers payout is a lot nicer.
Yes.
Plus
Yes.
750 is what I got it at, and I got the Florida Panthers at plus 350. No, I'm not worried. Both of these teams are incredible, and I am so glad that we're finally seeing some scoring and seeing a little more action,
Yes. Yes.
in game 3, 4, 5 here. So I'm incredibly excited, and I did promise a friend that I would fly out to New York for the first time. I don't know if you know, but I've never been to New York.
Oh,
Yeah, so
sister. Well,
hopefully
well, first of all, that's more reason then for
for me to
the
root for
Rangers to
them.
keep winning.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really hoping the Rangers win because I really want to see New York City and I got to go to a game. So if they make it to the Stanley Cup, catch me at
Yeah.
MSG.
Oh my god, I love first of all, those tickets are gonna be insane, but with all your winnings,
Yeah, yes,
from
with all my wins.
UFC, that will obviously be able to pay for that. But yeah, there's nothing like a Rangers game at Madison Square Garden or a playoff game at Madison Square Garden. I've, of course, never been to a Stanley Cup final at Madison Square Garden, but when I worked for MSG, we did get to go to a couple of playoff games, and the atmosphere is absolutely electric. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here, but playoff hockey is probably the most exciting sport to watch in person. I love football and the playoffs, and I went to the Super Bowl this year, although
Right.
the 49ers
Although, yeah,
lost.
it didn't end how you wanted it to, but the experience, I mean,
The
who can say
experience
they
was,
went?
yeah, but it was almost like an out of body experience for me because I ended up getting a free ticket. It was because I got it through work. I was there for work all
Ooh,
week, and sometimes these tickets just pop up. And so I went. I was sitting up in the rafters, and it was just like it was completely surreal because
yeah,
since I work in football now too, I don't really get to go to games because I work every Sunday.
that's right.
So then it was my first 49ers game I had been to in person in like 3 years. I was a season ticket holder for a
Wow.
long time, and so then I'm sitting there at the Super Bowl up in the rafters at a it was wild, but yeah, didn't end the way that we wanted to, but anyways,
Mm,
I digress. Playoff
at
hockey
least you didn't
is the
pay
best.
for it to watch them lose, so
Oh,
that's the best thing.
especially because those tickets were like minimum, even if you were up in like, they looked like little peanuts. I was up so high, and those tickets were like, if I paid $5,000 for that to see them lose, like I don't. So,
Had me
anyways, but
speaking to a manager here pretty soon,
yeah,
like, "Hey,
exactly.
they
I know. I
lost."
get my Karen on.
Yeah.
All right, Minty, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always so fun to talk to you, and I'm so grateful that you lent your knowledge to the Moxie Bets listeners for UFC. Again, make sure you follow her guys at Minty Bets so you can tail along with everything that she is doing, and download Fight Pass if you haven't already. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. We'll see you next time.